Clair Obscur Expedition 33 is remixing turn-based RPGs with parries and special party member skills. The game has some great tutorials, but getting good at combat requires patience, practice, and some pro tips. This combat guide will give you a closer look at the fundamentals, plus a few specific strategies for particular party members to get your expedition started on the right foot. One of Clair Obscur's main selling points is the ability to dodge, parry, and jump during turn-based battles. You can do any of those against any attack, but results will vary, and they may even get you more hurt. Of the three, dodges are the easiest to pull off. They have a wider timing window, so getting them right is easier to learn. Pair them with the Dodger Pictos, and you'll even earn yourself a bonus AP every time you avoid an attack with a perfect dodge. Parries, on the other hand, require very specific timing. For all three of these, you'll need to learn enemy attack patterns and speeds, but for parries in particular, remember this: you need to press the button at the moment of impact. In many cases, it almost feels like you're pressing it too late, but anticipating and pressing early will just get you hurt. For every successful parry you do, you'll earn AP. If you stave off an entire combo aimed at you, you'll automatically counter for a big hit of your own. Should an enemy attack each party member in succession with a scattered attack, you'll still get a counter if the character who parries the final blow parried all their previous attacks. So other party members can get hit, but as long as the last targeted character parries all attacks aimed at them specifically, the counter will still go. Finally, we have jumps. This special dodge only applies when you see the jump icon flash before an attack. It's a clear signal, but if you try to jump away from any other attack without this mark, you'll get hit. Even if the enemy itself is jumping as part of the attack, or even if it's attacking the whole party, you should never jump unless you see that symbol flash. The good news is that every time you do, you can also hit back with a party-wide counter by pressing the right trigger while your party is still in midair. Every party member has their own skills, but they can all fire guns. The game will teach you about shooting enemy weak points, but there are also some gun-specific tricks you need to keep in mind. First and foremost, it's usually not worth it to empty your entire magazine into an enemy. The exception would be if you're facing a flying or floating enemy, because these will almost always dodge your standard melee attacks. This is important because each bullet costs you 1 point of AP. You can still end your turn with a regular attack or skill, but the latter only works if you've conserved enough AP. Like with most of these tips, there are more exceptions the further you get into the game. Later on, you can actually build a character around doing a ton of damage or multiple debuffs by shooting enemies more frequently, but in the early hours, think before you shoot. Now, there are times when it's worth firing your gun until it's empty, and the most common case is for enemy shields. When you see that symbol over their health bar, it means you need to hit them that many times before they'll actually take damage. Each bullet will take away one shield icon. That's one way to deal with multiple shields. The other options are to use status effects or multi-hit skills. A burning enemy takes damage at the start of each round, and if they're shielded, the burn will tick off one shield icon instead of hurting them. That's a great status effect to focus on no matter who's in your party. Additionally, you can use skills that hit the enemy multiple times, because each one of those will also knock off one shield. Lune has several great spells for this. And Gustav's Lumiere Assault hits the enemy 5 times in a row, doing extra damage if you time your button presses right. As you're piling on the damage, you will also notice a yellow meter filling up below the enemy or boss's health bar. This is the break meter, and it's essential for winning some of the tougher encounters. You can fill it up by dealing damage, and when it gets full, it's time to use a break skill. This effect is specifically written in the description of several skills. Gustav's Overcharge and Maelle's Fleuret Fury are 2 examples. If you break an enemy when this meter is full, they'll take a huge hit and become stunned for a full round. This means they can't act the next time they come up in the turn order. This gives you time to heal or to keep pounding them with more attacks. While stunned, enemies and party members alike take much more damage. Breaking and stunning is the intended way to defeat the game's mimes. These tough optional bosses can be found in each of the game's zones, and they drop great loot when you manage to beat them. This next point is more about augmenting your combat skills rather than executing them in a fight. Pictos act like special pieces of equipment that both augment your stats, like increased health, attack power, or speed, and grant you a special benefit, like more AP generation, elemental attacks, and special gunfire. First, make sure you're not wasting your slots by equipping redundant effects. For example, if your melee weapon already deals fire damage, there's no need to put the same effect on your gun unless you're stacking for a very specific build later on. In general, you should keep a variety of attack augments, stat buffs, and other passive bonuses across all your party members in the early game. Every time you win 4 fights with a Pictos equipped, it becomes unlocked for the whole party. This means you can spend your Lumina points to gain the bonuses of Pictos you don't currently have equipped. Click the left stick to switch between these two menus on the party screen. You can allocate and reallocate your Lumina as often as you want. Once the curator comes to your camp, you can also spend all those colors of Lumina you've been collecting to give your party members more points. Keep in mind, and this is crucial, that equipping these unlocked benefits through the Lumina menu only equips the special skills, not the stat buffs the Pictos initially come with. So you need to make a decision between using a Pictos slot to attain both the benefit and the buff, or using Lumina points if you want to save your slots for something else. It's a constant balancing act, especially with the extra incentive of swapping out your Pictos often to unlock more Lumina. We're gonna finish up with specific tips for 2 early party members. Lune is the first person who will join Gustav in Chapter 1, and her combat prowess can be harnessed for big damage if you know what you're doing. Lune's skills generate stains, but it's easy to miss how these work. You're not staining the enemy here. Instead, think of this as priming your own weapon with elemental energy. Each skill generates stains of a certain color, and they also consume stains of different colors to deal additional damage or gain extra effects. As an example, Ice Lance adds a blue stain, and Immolation consumes a blue stain to hit the enemy harder. The goal with Lune should be to stay in a flow state, chaining together stains so that every skill is boosting the one that comes after it. There's even a trophy/achievement for doing this for several turns. If you're unsure of what skills are primed by the stains you have, just look for the yellow text. This always indicates a bonus for any skill from any party member. It can also help you remember the order by equipping your skills in a row where you need them. Generate stains with the first ability, consume them with the next, and so on. Additionally, Lune will also be your main source of healing, other than items and some of Gustav's utility skills early on, if you choose to play her that way. And yes, stains boost her healing abilities as well. Maelle will join after Lune, and her skills all revolve around stances. Some skills will activate a stance at the end of her turn, while others gain bonuses if you initiate them while already in a certain stance. First things first, know that being stance-less isn't outright bad. It just means Maelle isn't at her full potential in the fight. Offensive stance is a risk-reward, dealing 50% more damage, but also taking 50% more if you get hit. Defensive stance, on the other hand, reduces damage taken and grants bonus AP when you dodge or parry. Lastly, you have Virtuous Stance, which deals an extra 200% damage. Unless you're playing it safe with defense, your goal should always be to reach Virtuous Stance. If you use a skill that would activate the stance you're already in, you'll revert to being stanceless. Beyond that, your regular attack will switch between offensive and defensive stance once you're in one of those. It might sound complicated, but you can chain all this together as soon as Maelle joins the party, as her skills are meant to work together for this exact purpose. For example, Spark will burn an enemy, and Swift Stride will then put Maelle into Virtuous Stance after attacking the burned enemy. At that point, make sure your next move is a big one, because Virtuous Stance will go away after the next attack unless you use a skill that explicitly says otherwise. Find the pattern that works for you and repeat it, and remember that yellow text always points the way. And with that, you should have a good grasp on Clair Obscur's combat in the first act. There are more party members and bigger bosses as the game goes on, but these tips will help you find your footing as you explore the continent. For more tips and tricks inside and outside of combat, you're already in the right place. IGN.